Welcome to a DSYNC troubleshooting video. What would be some of the core things that you would check when troubleshooting your data sync? The first thing to look at and identify would be the mapping. Open the mapping by clicking on the lines between the jobs. Has there been a map set up? Then scroll down and have a look to see if all the required fields have an entry next to them. Be sure to check if the mapping has been completed in both directions by selecting the two arrows to reverse the direction. Authentication is the next thing to check. Each system you have on your dashboard is required to be authorized to talk to DSYNC. To check the setup, click the system, then on the right-hand side, select the settings icon. Check you have entered in the URLs correctly. Check that you have entered the keys correctly. It is not mandatory to enter the basic user access for some systems. Please note it is optional. Some systems may have additional security requirements, and that is why we have the optional fields there. Basic access authorization is common for development sites or staging sites. We do handle a lot of WooCommerce sites, so please make sure your key settings are set to read write. If you are syncing data with an RSS, FTP, or a location endpoint, you will need to make sure all of the settings are correct to extract your output to. To check the settings of an endpoint, simply click on the endpoint and view the authorization settings on the right panel. When troubleshooting, be sure to check that all of the settings are there and they are valid. Check the username, host, protocol, the path and the file name. All of this information needs to be within the settings for the sync to work properly. Authorization is required on both sides of the data sync. For example, if you are synchronizing data from WooCommerce to an FTP location, there is specific GET method URLs located on the Woo endpoint side. Each job will have to have specific authorization. At a very least, it should have at least the URL and the method to be able to run properly. In most cases, you will need to check the system auth settings as in the overall system connection, and the specific job or the endpoint settings. To check the system settings, click on the whole of the system, then Settings on the right. To check the specific job settings, click on the endpoint and the settings are on the right. Sometimes with API settings, it is important to check the HTTPS may have a challenge. It is always good to check the website to check the certificate as DSYNC cannot work with self-signed certificates. If the certificate is green, then there is no problem. With authorization settings, please make sure you have authorized 1. The system, 2. The specific endpoint of the job. This will need to be checked on both sides of the data synchronization. Essentials to check when troubleshooting include: do you have both data layouts set up? Have you set up mapping? Have you authorized both systems or destinations? Have you clicked on both endpoints and checked both endpoints have valid credentials? Have you enabled the job? If all of the above checks are in place, it is most likely invalid credentials. The team are here to help, so please reach out to the crew if you need help.